Hello and welcome to Speaking with Sonnet. Now we're in a different place today, as you can see. We're actually in the library. We thought a change was as good as a holiday in terms of our background. So I have the lovely Mr Lavington here, and we're going to be doing a Christmas Carol. Now what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be looking at some of the minor characters, because what you tend to do when you're looking at this is you look at Scrooge and his change and the ghost, but there's a lot of minor characters who actually are very important to the book in terms of what Charles Dickens is trying to show, which is obviously the discrepancy between what the poor and the rich have, and how the rich should actually treat the poor with kindness and humility and charity, ultimately, because he believes that they should be good Christian people. So I think the first person that we should look at, I mean, we've looked at Bob Cratchit and the poor, are the two. Well, we'll look at Fred first of all, yes. Shall we? So Fred is his nephew. Now, you should remember that Fred is the son of his sister Fan, who he loved very much. Because when he's at the school by himself and Fan comes along and she's like, oh, Father says that you can come home, Father says that you can come home, and she's obviously a very lovely child. But Scrooge is not particularly welcoming to Fred at all, is he?
No, he's quite cold and refuses his initial interaction. He refuses to say Merry Christmas.
Yes.
Doesn't he just say good afternoon?
Yeah.
Quite a British conservative thing to say rather than acknowledging the holidays.
Yeah. So on page 22, Fred Kane comes in and he says, "A Merry Christmas, Uncle, God save you," cried a cheerful voice. So the first thing to note is that he uses Merry Christmas. So he is celebrating the idea of Christmas, isn't he? And family, and he's gone to see his uncle, who he knows is cold and horrible and not very nice. But also what he says is, he says, God save you. So that's the second thing that we hear. So do you want to say anything about that?
Well, it's kind of the idea of the Christianity throughout this, isn't it? And how
Yep.
like, the good, wholesome characters,
Yeah,
like the
all
Cratchit
good
family,
people
are Christian. And the
Yeah.
fact that Scrooge kind of turns his back on this and doesn't acknowledge it is kind of to say that he is different and
Yeah.
therefore a kind of bad, different character of this.
Yeah. So he says, cried a cheerful voice. So even there you've got this indication, again, this kind of like implied that if you believe in God and if you are a good person, then it will make you kind of fill you, like we said before, with light and with love, and you will be happy and it will do good to you as well as doing good to other people. And again, when we're talking about the nephew here, it's after we've just had on page 20 and 21. I won't go into lots of detail, but this is when we're getting introduced to Scrooge, and everything is all about how he was self-contained, cold, frosty rime on his head.
That's one thing I noticed as well, because when they were in the parlour of like his nephew's party,
Yep.
They often describe like the laughter as roaring and stuff like
Yes.
that, which is quite warm and something you associate with a fire.
Yeah.
So there's quite a lot of parallels between the coldness and the warmth
Yes.
of the candle.
And this is another one that we've talked about before, is this light and dark imagery, and it's also temperature, isn't it? The light and dark imagery and the kind of the heat of fire. What I like to notice is the fact that Scrooge, despite the fact that he behaves in a very poor manner and he's cold and he's rude and he's ungrateful, everyone responds to him very well. So where he is saying like humbug, then "Come then," returned the nephew gaily, "what right do you have to be dismal? What right do you have to be morose?" So everyone responds in a very positive way towards him, which is also shown during the party with
Yeah.
Fred, isn't it?
Well, yeah, because they all talk about Scrooge behind his back, and the nephew kind of just laughs it off and is like, you know, I wouldn't have it any other way. I'll always invite him.
I know. And so why do you think, because what Dickens has done there is he's heightened the positive characteristics. Because if I had a really vile uncle who every time I was like, "Hi, uncle," they were like, "Ah, blah, blah." By the end of it, I'd be like, "Go away. I don't care about you. You know, you obviously don't care about me." I would lose my patience, but Fred obviously doesn't. And I think that's quite heightened. But why do you think Dickens does that?
Well, I'm guessing it's a kind of idea of Christmas and then also Christianity together. So it's kind of like being welcome and accepting of all. And I guess it really highlights Scrooge's character as well, especially
Yep.
the way that he kind of will turn his back on people. So you
Yeah.
see how he speaks negatively of other people behind their back. Like, what, aren't there any workhouses when the two men come
Yeah.
collecting for charity? So it's kind of seeing how they interact, you know, when speaking with other people, but then also behind closed doors, which I think is quite telling, because obviously absolutely love a gossip. Like,
Yeah.
a horrible family member is like,
Yeah.
oh, can you believe what they did?
Yeah. They wouldn't even come on Christmas.
Yeah, it's like all me and my sister do, like kind of chats around Christmas time. Big fun family.
And but this is true. And also, I mean, there's something I think a little bit vomit-inducing about Fred, because he is so nice.
Yeah.
And he's saying, when they're having this kind of little discussion, shall we say, and Scrooge is like, what reason have you to be merry? And he says, there are many, this is what Fred says on page 23, Christmas among the rest, but I am sure I have always thought of Christmas time when it has come around, apart from the veneration due to its sacred name of Georgian, if anything belonging to it can be apart from that, as a good time, a kind, forgiving, charitable, pleasant time. Now, there's no way in the whole world that anyone would actually speak like that to somebody who they know doesn't care about Christmas. It's like when Tiny Tim's like the mouthpiece of all humanity, and you're like, no, he's like a young child who doesn't understand where his nose is. And then they're like, oh, but I'm so like this. So I think, why do you think he's so heightened in his goodness?
I don't know, I guess like you can kind of look at it in two ways, but I guess for me, like, it kind of is to get the parallels between him and Scrooge.
The juxtaposition.
There. But then also I guess you could read into it in other ways and be like, you know, is he just kind of doing that for like his own sake and stuff like that, or does he actually, like, is it a bit facetious?
Nice. Yeah.
Could you kind of read into it?
Could you also say that he's as stubborn as Scrooge?
You could, in a way, especially that he's like talking about how he'll always go around and invite him. It's almost like, I guess, you know, saying, do you want to like kind of hang out with someone when you know they're not going to actually hang out? Or like, if you need anything, just let me know, knowing that they won't. If Scrooge actually was like, I'd love to come around, do you think he would then backtrack? That's...
What you mean? So he's actually doing that for his own good. So Fred's like, come round, knowing
I don't know. I kind of read it a bit like that.
Oh, interesting.
But then it's just, they're so hyper real, aren't they, the characters? Like,
Yes.
When Tiny Tim was like, I hope people gaze upon me and, you know...
See that I'm a cripple?
Yeah, and be thankful. It's like, come on.
Yeah.
Come on, Tiny Tim.
Yeah, you just want some goose.
Yeah.
So the other two people that come in during this time, so some minor characters, are obviously the portly gentleman, and the first thing that you notice about, and so this is on page 7, is the fact that Dickens writes, this lunatic, in letting Scrooge's nephew out, had let 2 other people in. They were portly gentlemen, pleasant to behold. So portly, in this instance, means like well-fed, and I think what he's doing here is he's showing this generalised idea of what rich people would be, which is very different to Scrooge. So they use their money wisely by obviously buying nice food, drinking a lot, keeping warm, looking well, having a bit of a tump on them. Whereas Scrooge has all this money and he does nothing good with it, and I think that's the first thing you can talk about in the contrasting language between them. Do you want to say anything about that, about these two?
Well, it's quite an important interaction, because obviously the characters are there to kind of get Scrooge's opinion across, but then also they take, like, he's then quoted by the ghosts.
Yeah.
So, and it's really kind of highlighting to Scrooge that every little interaction you've had is being noted, and
by the big man upstairs.
Exactly. So that's why it's like something we need to change his ways. And when he kind of meets the ghosts of Christmas past, future, sorry.
Yeah.
The fact that he's like, oh, I think I've changed my ways.
Yeah.
Luckily, it's been noted.
Yes. So you can't get away with anything.
Yeah.
So what happens here is the very words that he says here are then said back to him at different times by the Ghost of Christmas Present, certainly. So this is a really famous, really popular extract that you'll probably study. So the men are kind of pleading with his better nature on page 28. Very, very famous quotes. If you can learn some of these, that's really good. So the portly gentleman says, many thousands are in want of common necessaries, hundreds of thousands are in want of common comforts, sir. And then Scrooge says, are there no prisons? I'll do my London accent. Plenty of prisons, said the gentleman, laying down the pen again. And the union workhouses, demanded Scrooge, are they still in operation? They are still, returned the gentleman. I wish I could say they were not. A treadmill in the pool or are in full vigour then. And then so he's basically saying, look, there's plenty of provisions for the poor. I don't need to give them charity. And again, probably one of the most famous speeches on page 29. If they would rather die, said Scrooge, then they had better do it and decrease the surplus population, which links back to Thomas Malthus wanting to throw the plague down the slums and do away with the poor. So would you like to say anything more about these two? They're kind of like, as sort of some of the main characters, used slightly two-dimensional plot device.
Used to kind of emphasise the importance of the kind of messages of Scrooge changing his ways more than anything. But I do quite like the fact that they are portly. Just bring back to that. Like, it's quite nice kind of, and I'll put the little image on. But they do look like nice, well-respected men.
And then he's like, you can just imagine him like with a little drip of snot coming off his nose and like, get out of my countenance, you. So obviously we've looked at the spirits. So the next person that I'm going to look at is Fezziwig, because we've talked a little bit about Fan. So Fezziwig is again written and described as being everything that is in contrast to Scrooge as a boss. So we can have a look on page 60. So this is Fezziwig, so this is Scrooge's old boss, and he says, "Yo-ho, my boys," said Fezziwig, "no more work tonight. Christmas Eve, Dick, Christmas Ebenezer. Let's have the shutters up," cried old Fezziwig, with a sharp clap of his hands, before a man can say, "Jack Robinson." So then on page 61, "Hilly-ho," cried old Fezziwig, skipping down from the high desk with wonderful agility. "Clear away, my lads, and let's have lots of room here. Hilly-ho, Dick, cheer up, Ebenezer." So what can you say about how he speaks and what he's doing? And
well, just the way he kind of does it is, you know, obviously a lot more energy. It's really like, uplifting. And when you go on the next...
do his little dance.
Yeah. Well, I just saw that
do
on the
his
next
jig.
page. And,
his little jig.
Then old Fezziwig stood out to dance with Mrs. Fezziwig. Top couples too, and then the little image as well.
I
Once again, they're so
know.
portly and happy.
And, yeah.
And it's almost like they are opposite in appearance as well.
Yeah.
From illustration, aren't they?
And Scrooge becomes more kind of... Every time he contrasts with these people who use their money for good, like the portly gentleman and Fezziwig, the physical representation of Scrooge becomes even more sort of twisted and diminished and cold, and it makes him just seem so much more unlikable.
Yeah.
Because, and what you can also link back to, now, we have to remember that during the Victorian times, food was not as plentiful for everyone as it is now. So someone being larger in stature was probably far more of an indication of wealth than it is now. So the fact that the Ghost of Christmas Present as well, he's a big portly ghost, and Fezziwig's large, and the portly gentlemen are large, I think it indicates that there is plenty, but it needs to go round to everyone, especially if you consider somebody like the portly gentleman compared to like little tiny kid, you know, and they're eating like half a slither of a goose and they think it's enough to fill them up. So what Scrooge also says about this is on page 63. So this is old Scrooge in his bed cap. He's talking about Fezziwig, and he says he has the power to, in my Scrooge voice, he has the power to render us happy or unhappy, to make our service light or burdensome, a pleasure or a toil. So Scrooge is becoming aware of the importance of being a good boss and the impact that this can have on his workers. And the other one that we like to look at is his girlfriend Belle, where she's basically breaking up with him, and she says, "What idol has displaced you?" He rejoined, "A golden one." And she's very kind, I think, in her rejection of him. And she is very aware, so she's aware that the idol has displaced her. And what I like about Belle is that she doesn't try and change him, but she knows that she can't. She can't go against his love of money.
Yeah, and I guess if you were talking about Scrooge, because there's so many different ways you could talk about it with narrative, couldn't you? Because it's like how you met him, but then if you look in the past and stuff like that, you see how he kind of develops throughout, and this I think is a key point of that turning point, which almost origin story of what turned him into Scrooge was probably this heartbreak.
Yes. Do you think he's heartbroken?
I think to a degree. I think he wants. See, this is my interpretation was, but like because it was kind of like, you're not going to change. I think that upset him. So he's like, well, if I'm not going to change, I'm going to just
kind
of go for the money aspect. That's only my thought on it, but just because I feel like, especially when you look back, he was happy, and at some point something just kind of clicked.
So you think he went charging up money because of Belle?
I think he kind of charged off money because he liked it, but then after Belle, he was a bit like, well, money's still there for me. Money can't reject me, and I'll hoard it. And the fact that he hoards it and doesn't spend it would kind of suggest that,
Because I always think that he's like, he can be he's quite dismissive of her. And he just like, I don't care, do what you want, little E.
I guess it would work both ways. Yeah. It would still kind of give a representation of the character as kind of being a bit of a loner.
But it's interesting because this would back up what you say on page 69. He seemed to yield to the justice of the superstition in spite of himself. But he said with a struggle, you think not. So there's that element of him being torn internally between wanting to be with her and wanting to get money. But what I like about Belle is the fact that as a woman, and the gender of people in this is obviously incredibly shaped by Victorian social context. The women were still very much seen as a mother, as a wife, and the men were the ones that went out and worked and had a life. Here she is doing the breaking up, which is quite a powerful thing. But if you're going to think of this being kind of feminist, not unfortunately, but she then becomes what the Victorian society would deem would be a successful woman, when the ghost takes Scrooge to see her as a woman, and she is with her family, and there are lots and lots and lots of children, and they were just talking about on page 71 the shouts of wonder and delight with which the development every package received. So there's lots of chaos. The doll's in the frying pan into its mouth. He was suspected of having swallowed a fictitious turkey glued to a wooden platter. The joy, the gratitude, and the ecstasy. All right, so she has obviously not married Scrooge. She's married somebody else. She's had lots of children. She's sitting there by the fire waiting for her husband to return, as all good women do. And it shows that she is happy.
And this is another reason why I kind of think that Scrooge was, because it kind of says that now Scrooge looks on more intensely than ever, and then it ends that paragraph with his sight grew very dim indeed, because it's almost like he's on the outside, once again being cold, looking in on the inside. So I think he did, like on reflection, was like, I think I made the wrong choice.
Yeah.
And I guess, like you said, in terms of the context of the time, although now the kind of reading would be bad, this is like the happily ever after. She's got all the kids and what she wants and stuff like that.
On page 70, this is something that the narrator is saying. And obviously this is something that therefore Scrooge is thinking, because he valued money over Belle, and he valued money over Belle, and therefore having a family and having children. And he says, I do confess to have the lightest license of a child, and yet to have been man enough to know its value. So I think that's a really tender quote that isn't often explored. But what it shows is that somebody at least realises that to be a real man, you value your family, you have children, you put them first, you make money but so it supports your family and you can do good with it. And Scrooge, the comparison of him being cold and outside and looking in and seeing Belle with the light as well, because she's by the fire again, lighting what he could have had, and he becomes really angry, doesn't he? So there's some other, sort of minor characters. Then we've obviously got the Cratchits, which we've done some beforehand. Is there any other minor characters here that you want to talk about before we go?
I don't think so. No.